This was recommended to me a while ago, and I've always been pushing it off. I figured we'll watch it now because I promised I would. We are jumping right into what ruined Ben 10. For a lot of people, me included, Ben 10 was a brilliant, beautiful, and fantastic series. And then as I got older, Gwen made me warm and fuzzy in all the other ways. But anyway, what ruined Ben 10 and forever ruined Gwentai?
In the early 2000s, Man of Action was brought down to Cartoon Network to pitch 20 ideas in 20 minutes. The idea that got picked up went into development and shaped itself into what we know today as Ben 10 Classic.
Let's go.
The show lined up nicely with the new rise of action cartoons.
Teen Titans, my beloved.
But stood out being the one with the most world building and story development.
I miss this era with Ben 10 and Teen Titans. I always preferred Teen Titans to Ben 10, but I always loved Ben 10.
If you ask any Ben 10 fan, you'd come to find out what draws people to the show more often than not is the universe it has created. Every alien that Ben turns into has a species, homeworld, and something to learn about it. It was always special whenever Ben met another one of his aliens he could turn into. And
dude, this was such a, just seeing this scene, because I remember this episode, seeing this scene reminds me of a truly goated era, bro.
And in the beginning of Ben 10's reign, despite it being a cartoon after all, it had a sense of reality tied to it. The adventures felt grounded. There were themes of exploration and mystery, with all different elements of sci-fi and fiction the trio would encounter.
Yeah, this is definitely where Ben 10 peaked, the first season, not the Alien Force stuff and everything after that.
There were mutants, mages, knights, alternate dimensions, time travel.
Bro,
it was all
dude, you got tentacle hentai, you got gwenticle hentai, you got everything you could possibly want.
Made sense. Nothing it did ever felt like a legitimate stretch, and the art style, of course, was far better than it needed to be. The classic series really built the
I think Vilgax is still one of the best villains in cartoon history.
Foundation of what could have been one of the most successful animated franchises of all time. But how do we go from that to this?
No. He made a Lego gun and the dinosaur stepped on the Lego.
I'm Kuro the Artist, and I'm going to go over the legacy that is the Ben 10 franchise.
Alien Force was aight at best.
The classic 2006 Ben 10 series was unlike anything else airing at the time. While seeming like a typical action cartoon about an adolescent boy with extraordinary abilities, many surprises and charming factors separated from all of its colleagues.
And I also like that he was a kid. You know, he was just a kid being a kid. Yes, he had these powers and he couldn't give these powers to anyone else, but he was ultimately just a kid doing kid things. A kid with a lot of responsibilities. And he would screw up, and he wasn't always morally superior. And Gwentai.
And from the multiple continuations, video games, spin-offs, merchandise, even getting the live-action treatment twice, Cartoon Network
Remind me to throw up.
Was very aware of this too. The first continuation of the series was titled Ben 10 Alien Force. With the original series being successful in world building, humor, and action, Dwayne McDuffie was brought on board to help add a new and less episodic story direction to the series after his success with shows like Static Shock and Justice League Unlimited. This all strengthened the show as a whole, tying each episode of the first two seasons with an overall narrative, shaping out the main characters to be more three-dimensional, and expressing the consequences and responsibilities Ben must take on at such a young age, with the absence of his then presumed deceased grandfather.
My complaint with Alien Force is they made Ben 10, they took away all the appeal of Ben, like the character Ben.
You'll have to take it from here. I know you can do it. I believe in you. In all of you.
At this period of time, Ben 10 was in its prime in terms of quality. This is where things change. Season 3 of Alien Force was perhaps the worst thing that ever came out of the Ben 10 franchise.
Yeah.
The characters had changed drastically, subverting a lot of growth they had the previous two seasons.
Yeah.
The story direction seemed to have an entirely different feel to it, and aside from the first and last two-part episodes, there was no story arc to follow. Before his passing, Dwayne frequently visited the message boards on his official website, where he would answer questions about all of his work. But because of its massive popularity, the boards were more or less dominated by Ben 10 fans, including myself. I recall at the time a brief statement about a potential alternate version of Season 3. Apparently, the writers intended to continue down the road they had built during the first two seasons. I do not recall much about the statement, as I had read this about 6 or 7 years ago. But the original plans for Season 3 had something to do with Kevin mutating again and struggling to stay sane. Nothing we didn't get a whole lot of down the line anyway. But with the impression that Seasons 1 and 2 of Alien Force originally gave us, I feel as though it would have been tackled a lot more different. And perhaps with that type of subject matter, the network got cold feet and wanted them to remake the story. I actually tried to go back and search for the original statement, but since Dwayne's passing, his website got a design overhaul, and a lot of the old boards are inaccessible, even when using the Wayback Machine. However, about a year ago, I came across an article that interviewed Eugene Sun, who also mentioned there were other plans for Season 3. But when trying to find it again for this video, it was removed as well. He was responsible for both the best and the worst episodes of Season 3, so if anyone knew anything, he probably did. I ended up contacting Eugene Sun via Twitter asking him for an interview, and he actually responded saying he's interested, but once I sent the email with the questions, I did not receive a response. The only thing I know for sure is that regardless of the improved storytelling and tone Alien Force had over the classic series, ratings were still higher whenever it was 10-year-old Ben in the spotlight.
That's right, because even if the storyline was better, even if the plot and the themes were better, it was the childhood glee of the 10-year-old Ben in Ben 10 that made the show so lovable.
Rather than his 15-year-old counterpart. Cartoon Network believed that this was because Ben was more likable when he was acting immature and egotistical, so they demanded for Ben to be more like his child self in the third season in hopes of boosting the ratings.
No way! It was because Cartoon Network told them to make a character who developed for the last 2 years revert to being a baby?
This became very obvious when you watch Ovis Small's video comparing Ben in Season 3 to the previous two.
Dude, I freaking hate when that happens. When YouTubers work with a manager and the manager tells the YouTubers what videos to make, those are always the worst idea. It's like, I noticed people liked watching your video reacting to funny memes. I think you should make a video reacting to memes about Barbie. Barbie's popular right now. Like, what? My audience doesn't give a shit about that.
I'm sorry I took Morningstar's side over yours. And more important, that I wasn't watching your back.
It wasn't your fault. I guess Morningstar had kind of control over me.
It was my fault. I was in such a hurry to build our team, I ignored the danger. If I'm going to be a good leader, I'm going to need to show better judgment.
I'm not kidding, Ben. I'm really mad at you.
But you won't stay mad at me. I'm adorable.
I felt that one.
Completely full of yourself.
Which is forgivable because I'm so adorable.
Dude, that makes Elon Musk renaming Twitter to X the antithesis of cringe.
It's a shame for Ben to lose all of that character development, and it didn't even boost the ratings. Perhaps we will never learn the true story behind what the original plans for Season 3 were, and why the network requested them to change the story. But whatever it was, it gave us the haphazardly thrown together Season 3 that we all know and acknowledge today. When Season 3 ended, it left Ben with a device called the Ultimatrix, another version of the Omnitrix that lacked some features the original had, but gave Ben the option to evolve his aliens into their ultimate forms. No doubt a gimmick to try to attract attention to more viewers. The concept
and to sell more toys
was interesting, but the execution was a bit poor, which unfortunately becomes a trend with how things happen in the show until its ending. For one, out of the 33 aliens Ben had at the time, only 6 of them had ultimate forms, and they were rarely used. By the end of the series, he only unlocked 2 more. Some forms had improvements over the original selves, offering new looks and an expansion of their powers, while some, like Cannonball, just grew spikes.
It's like when they introduced Mega Pokemon, and the Mega Pokemon were just kind of like, some of them were so cool, and some of them were, oh yeah, we're just giving Alakazam a beard.
However, Ultimate Alien seemed to be a hit. Ben 10 was practically the SpongeBob of Cartoon Network at the time, getting the most treatment in their crossover games like Punch Time Explosion, Fusion Fall, and TKO, having its own roller coaster, weird Asian theater performances, tons of merch, and a CGI tie-in that revisited young Ben's adventures. Ben had more character development in Ultimate Alien than he did in any other show, dealing with multiple upon multiple losses, death, rage, mortality, and fame.
Maybe you've forgotten something. I'm Ben Tennyson, wielder of the most powerful weapon in the universe. I stopped the hybrid invasion. I defeated Vilgax in hand-to-hand combat. And I've beaten the Forever Knights more times than I can count.
What brought Ultimate Alien...
I mean, that's like the badass speech you get at the end of the show. You can't take a character past that point. Once a character reaches that point, that is when they're done.
Down is the show still had to compensate for the events of Alien Force Season 3. The show didn't get too heavily into retcons until Omniverse, so Ultimate Alien still tried to fit into the story that Alien Force had left it. Despite how many lessons Ben had learned or obstacles he overcame, he would still slip into his 10-year-old self's personality should the story call for it. That was perhaps the biggest problem with Ultimate Alien, as plot and characters were very story-dominated. Dagon, a multi-dimensional demon, claimed Gwen was the most powerful being in her universe.
What?
But if you ever need to take her out, just throw a very average-looking welding torch at her and... that's it.
Stop the clam guy. We'll think of something.
Remember that time you flew, Gwen? It would also switch between story episodes.
Oh, that's rough, buddy. That's rough.
And filler episodes unrhythmically, where in one episode they learn of the Map of Infinity, which is the start of Season 2's half of the story arc, and in the very next episode, they're helping his childhood bullies with their web show. This isn't to say that the filler episodes are a bad thing, but the episodes themselves fall short of interest, and would cycle themselves into the main story at the worst of times, making it hard for viewers to maintain an interest into what's actually happening. The idea versus execution issue carries itself all the way to the end, where Vilgax has fused with the Dagon, and Ben wields Ascalon along with the Ultimatrix. Sounds like the making of an epic battle with over 100 episodes worth of buildup.
It does,
Here
bro.
we are again. Me, on the cusp of total victory. You, the last man standing. Who will it be? Diamond Head? Swamp Fire? One of your tiresome ultimate aliens? Perhaps you have yet another new transformation to spring on me.
The fight lasts for less
He's gotten so jaded. Vilgax has gotten so bored of this cat and mouse game.
than a minute and consists of them running at each other and Ben stabs him.
You stabbed me.
No! I didn't get this far. I'll admit it, I dropped it somewhere in Alien Force. There's no way.
And that's it. It's over. This inconsistency in tone led to a decline in viewership. Cartoon Network decided Ben 10 needed one last overhaul, and the world was introduced to Ben 10 Omniverse.
This show was ass. I saw a couple episodes and I could not stomach it.
The idea of Ben 10 Omniverse was to take the best elements of all three previous shows and stitch them together into something congruent, and flesh out the world beyond just Ben, Gwen, and Kevin. This ended up not being the case. I recall the very first promotional image of Ben 10 Omniverse that ever appeared, which is this image.
When you're either completely out of ideas or at the cusp of brilliance, you turn to the Omniverse. For some shows, parallel universes are the gateway to greatness, and for some, to their demise.
Here, almost immediately, there was backlash from the fans. Before I continue, I would like to say I really appreciate Omniverse's art style. It allowed for more dynamic
That's
movement
something.
and expressions. The backgrounds were impeccably detailed, and the ensemble cast of characters brought new life into the show. I believe the reason people did not like Omniverse is just due to change. For instance, when Teen Titans Go premiered,
Yeah?
the art style was the fan base's biggest problem.
No? Listen, as the biggest Teen Titans fan you probably ever met in your life, moi, the art style of Teen Titans Go was a little jarring, yes. But that's not why people hated it. People hated it because you had all these incredible characters and amazing plot development that you completely threw to the wayside for the sake of cringe.
And praised how the original Teen Titans looked. The story is the same with Ben 10, as people were bashful towards the new art style and praised
That's not what bashful means, but I'll let it go.
how the Ultimate Alien Force era looked. However, both Teen Titans and Omniverse have the same art style, being designed by Derek J. Wyatt.
Dude, stop it. This is disingenuous at best. This is not the art style. Teen Titans Go wasn't hated because of the art style. It was because Teen Titans was incredible. Do you remember how season 5 of Teen Titans ended? They defeated the Brotherhood of Evil. They find Terra, who's alive but doesn't have memories, and Slade is back. All right? That's how they ended season 5, with a massive cliffhanger. And then they released Teen Titans Go, which has no story, no plot, no stakes, no character development, and it's just like cheap gag comedy. So that's why it's getting made fun of. It's not just because the art style is cringe.
Was also responsible for Transformers Animated and Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, two other shows that were renowned for their bold and fresh execution of their franchises. I would also like to point out the difference between art style and animation. Art style is how the characters are designed and presented,
Wait.
while animation is the actual movement of the characters and how they interact with themselves and their environment. When people say the animation of Omniverse is bad, I think they are confused with the art style, as the animation is far superior to Ultimate Alien Force, but is still not quite on par with the classic series. Moving on, the network also wanted to further push for Ben to suppress himself into his younger roots, even featuring episodes based entirely around his younger self, in hopes of emulating the success of the classic series. What the network does not understand is that what gives the classic series its charm is because it is Ben's origin. It starts Ben off with his cocky and immature self and grows him into a more responsible and combative hero.
Exactly.
We enjoy
taking a character that went through their character development and throwing them back into before they developed is the worst thing you could do for a character.
watching young Ben because he's yet to experience the universe-threatening situations he will in the future. But after he already has, him regressing back into his previous personality is almost insulting.
True.
As if everything he went through did not mean anything. So Omniverse, yet again, negates the character development from Ultimate Alien in favor of keeping Ben immature and impulsive.
Also, I think it's important to mention that we connected to the aliens in the original Ben 10 so much more. There weren't as many of them. He was figuring out about them, their powers, their race, their style. Then he got billions of aliens that did freaking everything, which yes is badass, but doesn't have that classic try to figure it out feel.
Omniverse really wanted to push for the younger audience that it would advertise more of the comedic moments of the show rather than the action-orientated moments.
The newest Cartoon Network original series, Ben 10 Alien Force. The new Ben, a new Gwen, and new aliens.
Ben is back with Rock by his side.
We did it, buddy!
With more aliens.
Oh,
It would also
more aliens, guys! Now laugh! Laugh!
highlight the newer and more transformations, like blocks.
Oh.
At this point, Ben 10 has distanced itself so far from its grounded feeling. I apologize, but there is no way you can convince me there is an entire planet of these sentient Lego gorillas. Yet here he is in the show. If you try picturing blocks in the classic series continuity, it just wouldn't make sense.
See, but here's the thing. I feel like they say, the original Ben 10 worked because he was a cocky bitch. Let's make him a cocky bitch. And they forgot about everything else that made it work.
Ben 10 Omniverse also suffered the most out of the series by tons of executive meddling. Episodes would get aired
hate
out of
that.
order, causing continuity problems.
Dude, why do executives have to be assholes like that? I don't know.
Like events getting brought up before they even happened, and Ben using aliens he had not yet unlocked. Bandai also had
Oh my god, that's cringe.
influence over the production of Omniverse, requesting for there to be a way for one alien to use another alien's abilities, for the sole fact that they could build a toy line around it, leading to the creation of Skurd, a slimebiot that attaches himself to the Omnitrix and samples the DNA into weapons themed around Ben's transformations.
That is so cringe. They just can't leave us anything, can they?
Ben 10 Omniverse didn't really seem like it had an idea of what kind of show it wanted to be until far later into its run, as seasons 6 through 8 almost felt like a completely different show than seasons 1 through 4, with season 5 being the bridge in between the two eras. But by that time, it was
I will admit, I didn't watch any of that shit. I watched a couple episodes here and there.
already too late. Ben 10 got the majority of its funding by toy sales, and with the show being out for so long and taking a more mature tone shift, the audience grew older.
True.
The fan base was still there, but they were losing interest in buying toys and merchandise. Cartoon Network hoped to use Omniverse to gain more viewers from a younger audience, but that only resulted in them losing the majority of the fans they already had, based on their advertisement.
Listen, as far as Ben 10 falls, as far as the executives will push it to create meaningless, disgusting, and disturbing slop, there is good news. I'm talking about Gwentai, ladies and gentlemen. Gwentai is at an all-time high. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to thank all the lovely people out there that have done such a fantastic job making Gwentai real. Gwentai is keeping this goddamn economy rolling.
I use Blocks as an example a lot, as I am personally not a fan of him, but I believe he did play a big part in Omniverse's downfall, as it gave the impression of the show being more childlike than it actually was, and treated him as the staple alien of the show's advertisements, like Heat Blast and Swampfire were to the previous series. However, in the show, blocks isn't used nearly as much as the advertisements would convince you, and the show
blocks is shit, man. It's such a stupid idea.
tackled a lot more complicated elements further down the line, sometimes even surpassing Ultimate Alien. But with the decline of toy sales, Omniverse was losing its funding, and Cartoon Network burned off the final 3 seasons at 6 a.m. time slots with no advertising.
Damn, that is rough.
In hopes to make back some of the money in tax returns by purposely giving the show bad ratings.
That's crazy. I hate when they do that stuff, man. It's so sad.
It was a similar fate that Generator X had suffered previously. Omniverse was failing, and Cartoon Network set it up to crash and burn in its end. Ben 10 was a series of constant changes. In characters, continuity, tone, and
Look how little loyalty they had for their top show, their cash cow. Their show that they've milked in every possible way.
in art style. It made it very challenging to be a fan of the show all the way through. If there was something key you liked about the show, chances are it would be
died
changed
off by
down
then.
the line.
True.
With its universe being imploded on by network demands over and over, what other option was there to just start over and
What?
reboot it? I'll
I didn't even know about this.
admit, I am not a huge fan of the reboot, but that is because it is not for me. I think
Oh god, did you see how janky that flip
I am
was?
not a huge fan of the reboot, but that is because it is not for me.
Oh.
I think the art style is fun, and at first glance seems like another Steven Universe ripoff, but
No, it looks like a Teen
it has
Titans
many
Go
elements that gives it its own charm. Sound familiar? The animation is also very smooth, which can be fully perceived during the transformation sequence.
They have full transformation sequences. They just made it like a baby show.
There is no doubt it is a downgrade from the original franchise, though. The characters do not have distinct personalities.
Ah! How could you even say that in the same sentence as it's not so bad? The characters don't have distinct personalities? Bro, what is this Coco Melon looking ass?
Especially Grandpa Max, who may as well not even
What? I loved Grandpa Max. He was like the best character.
be in the episodes. And aside from the Omnitricked 4-part special, none of the episodes really matter in terms of storytelling. It's a show made to entertain kids and sell toys, and it seems to be doing very well for itself. The problem with the reboot is it implies a list of expectations that the previous 4 shows have set for it, and it does not meet any of them. You have to treat the show like its own entity, even though it carries the Ben 10 name. I have come to terms with the existence of the reboot, and if it comes down to it, you may even call me a supporter, but I still believe that our Ben Tennyson still has stories to tell. We never got to see him put the Master Control to everyday use, or see him on his path to becoming Ben 10,000. People may argue that once a character has reached his limits in terms of power, in Ben's case, mastering Alien X, that their stories are rendered obsolete.
I disagree. I don't think their story is obsolete based on when they reach like that level of power. I think their story becomes obsolete when their character has nowhere to grow. When they made Alien Force, they should have known that they were making it for a different audience and try to make it stand on its own 2 feet as a story. It's not all about just dragging a famous IP through the dirt through 3 or 4 reboots until eventually people lose interest. It's so sad, man. Ben 10 was like the real fall of a titan.
And there is nowhere else to go. I would argue
Oh, what is he doing? Oh, God, oh, God. No wonder why it got canceled. The Jews, they control the media.
that if your stories are solely based around how powerful the hero must be to defeat the villain,
That's true.
you're
That's
not
why a story like One Punch Man is forever going to be awesome.
telling a good story. Ben can have master control and be a leader in the Plumber Academy and still tell a compelling story. This is where 5 years later comes in. 5 years later is a crossover continuation of Danny Phantom and the original Ben 10 saga, giving each show their well-deserved ending as they were both mistreated by their networks towards the end of
Okay.
their run. It is written in a way that any
What? Who wrote this?
reader can understand what is happening, them being a fan of only one franchise or neither. If you have never seen Ben 10 or Danny Phantom, you could still follow and enjoy the story.
That's what it's all about. It has to be an inherently great story. It has to be a story that is inherently good. You can't just expect to suck off and fondle the balls of the audience that supported its past iteration.
The first 4 chapters are available at kurothewebsite.com, with the 5th chapter set to release this December 27th on Ben 10's 12th.
Wait, he wrote this. He wrote this. He's Kuro the artist. This man's he's promoting. Hold on. He's promoting his own shit. Self-promo. I respect it. Honestly, now this is a passion project.
Anniversary. If you enjoy the story, please tell your friends and join our Discord to discuss the series, share art, and meet other passionate fans of the franchises. Being a Ben 10 fan was not just a hobby. It was an experience. The message board.
Yo, that's like me with Gwentai. It wasn't a hobby, bro. It was an experience.
The speculation of new aliens, and the theories about how the logistics of the show would apply to the reality we live in. It may not seem like much, but if you give it a try, you can understand why there are more passionate fans than casual ones.
That was a good video. I'm really glad we got this whole walkthrough down memory lane here, talking about the destruction and implosion of a very beloved franchise. For me, Ben 10's original will always be like peak Ben 10. I feel like nothing captured the magic because they didn't really know what they were doing. I feel like they were always teeter-tottering on this list of trying to make a better show, more plot-based with an older character, but also still always pulling and tugging towards making the character fit into the shoes of who he was in the past.
Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam.